Appreciate you all joining. To get started, for those that do not know me, my name's Eric Ashburn. I'm a partner and private wealth advisor here at Argent Bridge Advisors. And today, my coffee and conversation topic is hopefully a timely conversation with open enrollment and employee benefits. I realize this isn't going to be our most popular topic. And before I get started, I'm screen sharing right now just a couple of disclosures and our reach out information, just so everybody has this. Want to give everybody an opportunity to write this down. Or you can reach out to me directly. It's my name, Eric Ashburn at argentbridge.com. I do not have slides today that I'll be sharing. I'll just be speaking, but if anybody would like any supporting material or information after this, feel free to reach out. Be happy to help. As I said, today is all about open enrollment, which for those that saw the ad that we put out before this to advertise the webinar, I was interested about the statistic that we found from AFLAC, the insurance agency, that 93% of employees simply stick with the same benefits year over year, and 40% of all respondents said they would rather do 3 hours of hot yoga or clean up dog poop rather than research their insurance benefits. So I know this is not the most popular topic, but hopefully I can give a few pointers because it is very important. And this is changing. Every company's open enrollment, their benefits are changing now more than ever. So it is something important to take advantage of and pay attention to, because it's a pretty small window. It's usually only 3 weeks, maybe a month every year where you can make these changes. And you kind of have to think ahead the best you can for the whole year. So I just wanted to highlight a few things that I think is worth paying attention to and some information. But as I said, I'm here as a resource, here to help. But with that, I will get started. So the first area I'm going to address just quickly is the core benefits that everyone thinks of when they think of open enrollment. And that is medical, dental, disability, and life insurance. I would say most companies offer this to some degree. So this is what people normally think of. And as I said, these are areas, even though they're core areas, vary wildly company to company and are changing greatly. Everyone knows medical costs are increasing. So it just makes the analysis, especially between husband and wife, even more important to dig into and see which is the best fit each year for your family. Thought it was interesting, kind of the rationale of why medical costs are increasing. Number one, baby boomers are getting older. It's an aging population right now. Chronic diseases are up. More people have them. Insurance companies, health insurance companies want to be protected. So the cost goes up for everybody. Drug prices have continued to go up. Healthcare services have continued to go up. And with all of that, leads to employers paying more, which either gets passed on to the employees or just makes it so that there's rapid changes year to year to make the costs down for employers. So I would say that's the biggest reason of why things are changing. And when we talk about health, the only thing I'll say is there's several important areas to look at. I listed 4 that I think are most important when you're comparing your plan to a spouse's plan or the open market or any other option. Is, are your existing doctors covered? Because that's very important to manage cost. And not everybody wants to switch doctors or go through that. So that's definitely a consideration. How much are premiums? That means how much are you paying each month for coverage? That's a cost you'll directly see and is very important, especially if you're going to have a surgery in the next year, or you are sick more often. Like these are important things to keep in mind. Next is the deductible, and that's the amount that you pay out of pocket until coverage kicks in. As I said, that's especially important with surgeries or if you're going to have a year with more medical expenses. And then lastly, I'd say co-insurance. That's the percentage of cost that's covered by healthcare services after you've paid the deductible. So if it's 50%, that means once you've hit the deductible, you're still on the hook for half of the cost until you hit your out-of-pocket maximum. That can be really important and is something to weigh as well. I would say all those four things together are some of the most important things to look at and compare when looking at plans. Also, it's important to think about changes you've had in the household or your residence because it varies a lot state to state. So something to consider and look at each year for that reason. And I mentioned alternatives. The alternatives I would say to your employer health plan and your core coverage is your spouse's plan, private health insurance, the open market. I'm not even going to list not having insurance as a possibility because I firmly believe everyone should have insurance. I'm not just saying that as a financial planner. I do think it's truly important, and it can blow up any plan to not have health insurance and have something happen that's unplanned or unexpected. So not even listing that as an option. Next is disability. Get the question a lot: is long-term disability, is short-term disabilities necessary? A lot of this comes down to what do you do and what's the cost. So it can vary. I would say most often you definitely want long-term disability. What that means is if something happened to you where you can't work, after 90 days, this is something that would kick in and help pay your income if you can't work. So it could really be valuable if you have something that lasts for months or years, and potentially you can't work again. I mean, it's a low cost because I realize this is a low probability of happening, but it does happen. And if it is a low cost and you're doing well in your situation, this is something easy to have covered, if there isn't even cost to you at all. Short-term disability, that's for less than 90 days. A lot of times you can just cover that with your bank savings, so self-insure for that period because it's only going to be for 3 months. But there are some situations where it makes sense, especially if it's not very costly. So it's at least worth looking at that and thinking ahead of what do you have in the next year that you can potentially plan for. Because if you sign up for it 1 year, it doesn't mean you're locked into it every year. It could just be 1 year. It makes more sense to have. Next, an important thing relating to health insurance is health savings accounts. Not to self-promote, but in my book, 40 Years on the Beach, just ask me if you'd like a copy. But I speak a little bit about this, and what I mean is the cost of health during retirement. So I realize this is thinking down the line, but the average couple, according to a Fidelity study, spends $300,000. I'm sorry, not $300, $300,000 on their health care after age 65 for the rest of their life. And a health savings account is something that you can put money in now, get what's called a triple tax benefit. You save tax now, it grows tax-free, and withdrawals are tax-free. A huge benefit you can get to help cover some of that cost, but you don't even have to use it during retirement. So these are some of the best benefits that exist if it's something you're eligible for. Not everyone will be eligible for it. I can get into those questions or speak to you individually to determine if you're eligible. And there are maxes you can put in, but if you do have some extra cash flow, even if you're somebody that doesn't go to the doctor very often, I don't think that it's a bad idea to put money into a health savings account. It is not use it or lose it. That is a different plan called a flexible spending account. those are a little bit more flexible, hence the name. They are use it or lose it, but they can cover a wide variety of benefits. You can even have one, a dependent care one, to help cover child care costs. And again, this is just there to save you on taxes. So it's worth looking first to see if it's offered, and then looking to see what it covers. And if you can kind of predict that there will be some expenses, definitely is a good idea to consider the flexible spending account and save yourself taxes if it's something you're going to be spending anyway. So that is the extent that I'll cover the core benefits that pretty much everybody has, things to think about. Next, I will go to life insurance, which I guess kind of falls under a core benefit as well, I mentioned previously, but is in a lot of ways a voluntary benefit because you can choose to offer more. It's worth looking at, and it's natural to ask the questions: is additional life insurance necessary? Does it make more sense to get insurance privately or pay to have more coverage through my employer? How much is needed? I found that nearly 45% of workers don't have or don't know if they have any insurance. That is very worrisome to me, because the truth is not everyone does need high levels of insurance and possibly any insurance, but a lot of times some insurance is free. The normal rule of thumb you'll hear is you should have 6 to 10 times your salary. I'll say it's very unlikely for that amount of insurance to be free, and not everyone needs that amount. It really comes down to, does anyone depend on your income? How much risk are you comfortable taking? How old are you? You can get to the answer pretty quickly once you start to have some of these answers, but it's worth looking at what the cost is and what your job is to really get a better idea of, do you need more life insurance? But typically, if you're younger, it's very cheap. Now is the time to definitely start thinking of these things. And it breaks down even further. Like, you can get hospital indemnity plans, supplemental life insurance, even pet insurance, these sorts of things. I would say that's case by case. It's worth looking at them, knowing what each option is, and seeing if it's something that could be a fit, especially if you're going to have a year with possibly more healthcare or life changes. These can be very beneficial because a lot of times they're extremely cheap and cover a very specific need. So if it's something you'll need, you could save a lot of money by using this during open enrollment, these voluntary health benefits. Besides life insurance, I would say a very popular thing that's offered is the prepaid legal plan, where you pay, it's usually like $20 a month, and you have access to a lawyer that can help you with all of your estate planning. I would recommend meeting with financial advisor first, just to see like what sort of estate planning could you need, because you don't necessarily want to overcomplicate it or contradict something you already have in place. But once you've met with a planner, hopefully that's me, but whoever your planner is, once you meet with a planner and decide that yes, this would be a good option, especially if you have nothing, I think it can be excellent. I mean, you can have access really cheaply to get basically anything you could need for the year. And you don't have to have it every year. You can just have it for a year, get everything done, and then don't renew it the next year. But this is something that you would take advantage of during open enrollment. So definitely worth thinking about and considering, because that is something that is so important. I know I listed it under voluntary, but everybody should ask themselves the question, is this something that I don't have currently and that I could need? And I think a lot of employees and people out there, the answer is yes, it's worth the cost. One other popular area under voluntary benefits is the mental health and wellness. I would say post-COVID, that's gone up tremendously. In fact, nearly 1 in 5 people over 18 in the US suffer from a mental illness. 30% of those individuals don't seek treatment because of the cost, especially, like I said, in this post-COVID world. It's become more common to be able to have this offered as a benefit and be able to get help, get access to apps. Any different companies have specific offerings, but it is something that it's worth seeing what you have offered. It could be something that fits your need perfectly, or you just want to try at a pretty economical cost. The variety of other voluntary benefits vary a ton. It's anything from student loan repayment, helping you get your master's, discounts on travel. You can usually see all of these things when you're in open enrollment. Even if it's something that you have access year round, maybe it's nothing you have to enroll in, but sometimes you do. So it's worth looking to see what's offered, what you need to enroll in, and is there a cost. So I would say that, I believe, is everything that I wanted to cover as far as voluntary benefits go. And these sorts of benefits, I would say, as I said, vary a tremendous amount. And if there's something that's not offered, pet insurance, childcare reimbursement, gas reimbursement, cell phones, anything like that that's not offered, as I said, companies are changing a ton. So if you do have an idea or see an idea when you're going through open enrollment and you're an employee, definitely bring that to your HR, bring that to your ownership. That is something that they may take under consideration and could be added in the future. And as an owner, I would say it's a good idea for owners and executives that I'm speaking to. It's a good idea to see what you are offering to employees and really revisit that, because there could be benefits that you could offer that would benefit the company tax-wise, or do a good job of bringing in top talent. There are studies that we've seen, and I can send you if you reach out, about what some of these benefits are that employees really want right now and could go a long way in keeping them. The next important thing that not everyone will have access to, but for those that do, especially the executives, this is something that could save a lot of money in taxes with proper planning, and that's deferred compensation plan. And that basically is the 30 days or however long you have to decide whether you want your income for this year or you want to defer it in the future and pay the taxes and receive it later. And there's a lot that goes into this decision as far as calculation and time frame and planning, but it's always worth considering because, like I said, it can be a huge savings potential for taxes. But you need to consider things like what expenses do you have upcoming? What's the company risk level? Because that is, if you're young and you're deferring something far into the future, you need to think about the company you're in, the risk level, because it's not guaranteed to still be there. But if you're in a stable company and you're only deferring it a shorter period, you can have a lot more confidence. You need to think about things like where you'll be living in retirement. I mean, if you're gonna move to Florida or a state with no state income tax, that could be an additional savings if you're pushing that down the line. And what's your option for how many years is it going to be paid over? Some companies require a lump sum. You take it all at once. Some let you do it over 20 years, some 10 years. So this calculation can be done. The risk can be looked at, but you have a pretty short time frame to make this decision. So if you do have this offered, and it's something you're considering, I think getting advice, thinking about the different variables is really important because, like I said, it could be one of your best benefits if the timing and planning works out. Next, I wanted to talk about some companies have cash accumulation plans or funds. I think of Lockheed. We have many clients with Lockheed. This is a benefit that they offer. Basically, it's the option to earn cash on a tax deferred basis. Certain companies let you put money away, earning guaranteed rates that you can withdraw. And there are caveats and things to consider with doing this, but it's a lower risk benefit that if you have available, you could be earning something pretty appealing on your cash with low risk. So again, it's a benefit that a lot of employees I've spoken to don't know they have, but it's pretty straightforward once you see it and see the benefit. So it's worth looking to see if you have a benefit like that. More and more companies are also setting up what's called a lifestyle savings account. So that is an account that your company sets up that can go to fitness membership, student loan reimbursements, non-medical counseling, anything like that. So that is something worth looking into to see, are you being offered that? To what amount? What options do you have? And is it something that can save you money? So worth looking into that. I just see it be more and more common. But that is something that a lot of questions come to me about. So with those 25 minutes, I believe I've covered open enrollment. The last thing that I'll speak about quickly is some other considerations that aren't unique to open enrollment, but are very important. Three things. First, I'll mention income tax withholding. So if you are getting married during a year, or there's going to be a life change later in the year, it's important to look at what are you withholding, look at your W-4, see if the taxes make sense so you don't get caught the next year with any sort of penalties or owing way more taxes than you expect. Just think if there's going to be a life change, what's the effect on my income taxes? Maybe there's a benefit you could take advantage of before these changes take place with proper planning. So I would say that's always a consideration, but something you can think about with the rest of everything else during this open enrollment period. Towards the end of the year, now's a great time to think about this. Next is the retirement contributions and investment options. So are you maxing out? Could you be contributing more? You can change this at any time, but it's easy to do now and plan it throughout the year so you can be consistent with how much you're getting paid, how much you're contributing. Are you contributing to a Roth retirement or a traditional retirement, a pre-tax retirement? These vary, which is best person to person. Are you saving taxes now and benefiting yourself later? Are you saving now but will owe taxes later? This answer varies, and some people don't know that they have a Roth available or don't even think a Roth could ever apply to them. But again, if you're going through a life change or anything has changed in your life, there could be a period, a window you have where one makes sense over the other. So you want to take advantage of that, think what you're doing and what could make sense to contribute to. The way I typically think of that is if you're in the 22-24% bracket and you're younger, you can make a strong argument for a Roth. If you're higher, I think you can make a strong argument for a traditional. But there is a large gray area, and a lot of it depends on what industry you're in, what your income expectations are, and your age. So there's a lot of variables that go into this, but just trying to be helpful with kind of what range is that gray area. And I would consider it around the 24% bracket. You probably need to think a lot more closely of what makes sense instead of just picking one. Lastly, with retirement is, are you in a target date fund or are you in specific funds? Does that need to be rebalanced? does the target date fund still make sense? A lot of that can depend on your goals and your account size and how often you're looking at it or if it's being managed. So that is worth looking at, especially if you haven't in a while. You don't want to be the person that constantly goes in and changes everything, because I don't think that that's very useful and probably won't pay off. But once a year, twice a year, it's absolutely worth looking at rebalancing, seeing if what you're in still makes sense. Then the investment options may have changed. So absolutely worth looking at. Next is just, it's an important one, and I know it's not for everybody, but looking at what stock options you have vesting or bonuses. This can impact the rest of the picture, because if you have a bonus or you have stock options vesting, maybe that switches the decision between a Roth or traditional. Maybe that switches how much you are contributing to your retirement. And a lot of these other areas, maybe it could influence what's the best decision. So involving that as part of the plan, I think, is really important. For stock options, I would love to give advice that all of you can take and say, okay, now I know to do this. But as you may or may not know, there's different types of stock options, and it depends greatly on where you are in your life, where the company is, what your expectations are, how long you're going to be there, what's your cash flow like, taxes like. In general, for everyone, I say you need to plan and think of the decision of, when are you going to exercise your stock options? When are you planning to sell? And what is the estimated impact, to be sure you have the money set aside to pay for taxes, for instance, if you are going to sell, and what stocks will be coming in future years, and will you even plan to be there in future years? These are all really important decisions that affect the overall plan.